Hello, and welcome to another episode of AP Taylor Swift, the podcast for Swifties who like to dive a layer deeper into the music. So lean in close, turn up your volume, because class is in session. We're your hosts. I'm Monsi.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Jody.
And we are your unofficial professors of Taylor Swift.
Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of AP Taylor Swift. We are so excited to have a guest with us today. So we're going to have some chit-chat, play a little game with Laura Bankers. Laura Bankers is a Swiftie, book lover, and an incredible artist who makes the cutest Swiftie and bookish-themed stickers. You can find her on Instagram with the handle at little.owlet.art, through her monthly newsletter, and on Etsy through her store, also Little Owlet Art. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
So you have just the cutest sticker store. I just keep looking at it in my preparation for this, and there's just so many cute stickers in there, a newsletter, and an Instagram account that shares books and stickers and stuff about Taylor Swift. So it's this hodgepodge of really cool things. How did that all start for you? What got you into doing this kind of content creation, art, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, I've always had a passion for having a small business. Ever since I was a little kid, I had several that failed, between babysitting and church craft fairs and sewing things and just like random stuff like that. But I didn't get started doing stickers until it was around the pandemic, so 2020. And I posted them on Redbubble, which is a print on demand site. Mm-hmm. So it's not like Etsy where you have to send them out yourself. And I was like, oh, I can just make cute little lyric art stickers. I can do that. I hadn't really done a lot of art in the past, but I like to draw and stuff like that. So I did that, but it didn't really take off until I would think the end of 2022, beginning of 2023. I started an Instagram account. I had started becoming a big Swiftie and making some Taylor Swift stickers. And there was one that I decided to get printed instead of just putting on Redbubble, because I found a printer that could do glitter stickers. And this was the Bejeweled music video corset with all the jewels on it. And so I got that printed. I was just like, wow, that looks really cool on this glitter material. And I had done some Etsy before with my other small business ventures. And so I posted it on there and on my Instagram account, which was still fairly new. And it totally took off. I had ordered like 50 stickers because I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to sell that many. And they all sold out in like 45 minutes. I was very blown away by that. I was like, oh my gosh. And suddenly everybody was commenting like, oh, when are they going to be back? I want one. Or like, can you do, because the Eras tour had just started at that point. Mm-hmm. Can you do the Lover bodysuit from the Eras tour? And all these other requests. So at that point I had to get a little bit more into actual digital art and learning how to use Procreate and draw on an iPad. And I kept posting about it on Instagram, and I really love books too. So a lot of my earlier stickers, and I mean, I've done more Eras tour outfits lately, but I have some book ones too, and I love to do more book ones. I just like talking about books as well because I really love to read. So that's kind of how it all started.
I love it. So it's like a combination of your passions, art, Taylor Swift, books. So you said only after the Bejeweled one did you start learning digital art? Were the original ones hand drawn? How did you do that?
Well, actually, yeah. So it was a little bit of a mix. I didn't do digital art with a pen. I used Canva.
Okay.
So that you can like use.
We love Canva.
Sponsor us all, Canva.
So the Bejeweled corset I had made by using different PNGs, just clip arts from Canva. So I put them on like a blank, I think it was a swimsuit originally, but I cut the bottom off of it or something, or like a corset.
Yeah.
And then just clicked and dragged every single little jewel onto that until it looked like the bodysuit. So it was still a lot of work, but I wasn't drawing them with a pen. Mm-hmm. But after that, the Lover bodysuit, I also made that way because it was just easier to like click and drag sequins. It took forever, a lot longer than the Bejeweled one.
Every individual.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a labor of love for sure. But then it's nice to get it printed because then you don't have to hand draw every single one that you send out. But after that, to do some of the dresses and some of the more complicated outfits from the Eras tour that weren't like bodysuit shaped, I bought myself an iPad. I learned how to use Procreate. I was very scared of it because I had never done something like that before. But you know, you get some YouTube tutorials and you figure it out, I guess.
Yeah.
That reminds me so much of how we started the podcast, where we were like, we're going to do this. And then we're like, hey, how do you make a podcast?
Yeah. Literally Googling and YouTubing, like, how do you?
Taylor's inspiring a whole new generation of women to just learn new technology.
I love that.
Seriously. We're a nerdy bunch here, so we'll definitely get into the books. But before we get into that, a little bit before the time of this recording, you posted on Instagram some Taylor lyrics as hints for new stickers. Do you usually start with a lyric and design from there, or what's your process like? You mentioned a little bit of fan requests through Instagram, but tell me about that process a little bit.
Yeah, so it is a lot of fan requests. Like, it's kind of how it started, was fan requests. And so from there, I've kind of tried to make it very based on what people want to see. So I'll do polls a lot on Instagram, on my Instagram stories, and just be like, oh, there's this new Eras Tour outfit. Or obviously earlier on, there was a lot of Eras Tour outfits that I hadn't drawn yet. And I would put 3 pictures or 4 pictures and then a poll with like 4 different color options for the folklore dress or for the lover bodysuit colors or whatever. And then people would vote on their favorite one. And then I would use that to then as a basis for my next design to make that into a sticker. And even for the lyric part, I would always want a lyric that came from that era or that song that the outfit was associated with. But I also like to put question boxes on Instagram stories to then say, oh, what's your favorite lyric from The Man? Or what's your favorite lyric from Evermore? And then people could type that in as well. So I got a lot of submissions of people's favorite outfits, people's favorite lyrics. And then I kind of tried to use the ones that were most popular to make stickers so that people kind of had a sticker of an outfit that they really loved or a lyric that meant a lot to them. So a lot of it, yeah, is just from what the people that I'm on Instagram with that I talk to, what they like and what they want to see. And obviously sometimes I pick things too.
Well, maybe we should be collaborating a little bit more because you've got the lyrics that everybody wants to hear and we should then analyze them and then you make the sticker. We've got something going here. We've got a partnership opportunity here. All right. That'll be.
I feel like there's a natural connection.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be the next thing.
This is what happens when marketers make podcasts.
The light bulbs.
So, Laura, which honestly, I kind of want to know, Monzi and Jody, what your guys' answers would be to this too. So I might ask you to answer it. If you could create a collaboration with Taylor Swift, whether it's an album cover, merch design, any creative project, what would your dream project be to collaborate with her on?
Oh, probably merch. I mean, I just think she could do so much more with the merch that she has. But I think it would be really cool if she had, I know she doesn't have an album that's about books necessarily, but if she had some just like bookish merch items, like a tote bag, or I really wanted to do a design of all of her albums as books on a shelf. So on the spines having all the album titles. And unfortunately, Etsy didn't like that and copyrighted it and took it down because I did try it at one point.
Oh, sorry.
I should double check and see if this was you, but I'm like, I actually have that tote through Etsy and I think a mug also.
That's funny. It probably wasn't me. I only sold like one tote, but I had a bunch of stickers until
I'm like, do I have
limited edition?
Well, I wonder if somebody else beat you to it maybe then otherwise, but I'm like, I'll add it in my show notes.
That's so fun. I mean, I think that's such a cute design, but especially if it was official merch and there could be like other little Easter eggs on the book spines or something. I just think that would be so cool. I would buy that so fast.
Jody, Monzi, do you guys have an answer?
A musical.
Yeah, I was going to, you'd make a musical with her. I don't know why I asked you.
A musical. I was like, why am I thinking it would be a musical? There would be no question.
Well, I kind of piggybacking along the book themed, but I'm always looking for little trinkets around the house. Like I think Pottery Barn did a collab with Harry Potter where they created like really beautiful decor. But I was thinking, because when you were talking about the book design, the first thing I thought of was like bookends. Like what if you could turn certain eras or songs into themed decor pieces that you could put on your bookshelf or around your house.
That'd be beautiful. And now I'm just visualizing like the fearless bookends and there's like gold gilded edges and like little castle. Like that'd be so pretty.
Or like candle stands or
yes.
Even like the friendship bracelets is such a thing. Like what if you had like a friendship bracelet something? Jen did a fantastic party where you created the the friendship bracelet
Garland.
garland. That was
that's
genius.
so fun.
It was a Super Bowl party.
I was like, what was that party? Was it an album release party? Nope, Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
What's that party?
But yeah, I think home decor would be fun.
Jen, what would yours be?
Something I would love. This is about to be the most that's not true. One of the most teachery things I've ever said on this podcast. Her influence is so big, and we literally, as we've been discussing for the last however long we've been talking, she references so many books that I would love to work with her to create some sort of a like ongoing book club. And I just think the influence she could have to just get young, I mean, she has fans of all ages, but reading is declining quite a bit because of screens for the most part, which I don't want to blame technology for all problems, but reading is still declining and we're consuming art in different ways, which is totally fine. But I still think there's some value in sitting with a longer story. And with the influence she has and with how clearly well-read she is herself, that would be like a dream come true for me, the English teacher, to get to work with one of the most famous people in the world to create some sort of a program or something that really encourages more people to read. I mean, like Dolly Parton has her program where she'll send kids books. It's like something like that I think would just be, I would lose my mind. It would just be the coolest thing.
That sounds so cool.
Rebrand the Scholastic Book Fair to the Taylor Swift Scholastic Book Fair.
Yes. I feel like that's so
that
on
would do
brand
it.
for her too. Like nobody would bat an eyelash.
It is. I think she did a partnership with Scholastic back in the day in like 2012.
What's crazy is I think we talk about this all the time, but she's still so like, we have no idea where this career is going. It could still happen in decade number 2 or 3 or 4.
That is true.
And then we can be like, she got her inspiration from this podcast.
Well, for all of us, it's kind of hypothetical. The collaboration is really far out, but you, Laura, have actually done something with it with your art. So that's still pretty cool, I think, and pretty inspiring. You did mention that so much of it is based on what the fans want. So how has being a Taylor Swift fan influenced the connections that you make with your audience? Would you say it's changed you in some way or changed over time?
Yeah, I just think having that as a mutual hobby or mutual love, like it's almost like a secret code or like a secret club. Because if you meet somebody and you're like, oh, you're a Taylor Swift fan, then immediately you can just launch into this really cool conversation about, oh, well, what's your favorite album? Like, how did you become one? Like, what's your favorite song? What does it mean to you? And that is such a quick pathway from just like, oh, I like this thing into like, why is this your favorite song? And what does it mean to your soul? I mean, it's so cool to connect with people that way because we all kind of have the same, if I can quote, you taught me a secret language I can't speak with anybody else. Like we all have something in common. And so connecting online or in person, it's so fun to talk to other Swifties because they all have different stories. Like, oh, this album really inspired me in this stage of life, or this song helped me through this hard time, or I've listened to her since I was a kid. And it's so cool how everybody kind of has their own storyline with being a Swiftie, but then they're all so unique and different, and I love to hear about them.
Yeah, and the Swifties are really a community, and you've also created this community around your art as well. That must, like, how has that changed your, you've already talked a little bit about how you like crowdsource sticker ideas and whatnot. Like, do you see this community also kind of like following you and your art as you go across different platforms as well?
Yeah, I've definitely tried to expand to more platforms with varying degrees of success. I haven't done as much on TikTok or anything else, but yeah, it's really cool to see all these people that all are united in liking a sticker that I made on Canva by dragging a sequin over and over and over again. So it's very cool to see that and then to be able to talk to them and be like, seeing what they're making. I follow a lot of other small businesses on Instagram too, and other creators, other artists. And it's just such a cool community because we all can support each other. One thing that I like to do in my monthly newsletter is shout out to another Swiftie small business. So every month I'll have somebody, this sweatshirt was actually from one of them. Shout out to
I love it.
August Days on Etsy, where I'll get a product from them and then review it and shout them out in my newsletter. So then people that are reading that who like my small business might find their new favorite Swiftie small business through that. And just being able to support other small creators and just Swifties who, do a variety of things. Like they might sew costumes, or they might have a Swiftie baking talent and make these really detailed cookies. Like I've seen so many people with so much talent, and it's so cool that we can all come together in this shared love of Taylor Swift.
Yeah, it reminds me of a concept that I can't believe I haven't brought up before on the podcast of discourse communities. The idea of a discourse community is it's a group of people who have kind of a unique way of communicating. A really good example of this that I think most listeners of this podcast have seen happen in the last couple of years is Swifties starting to become more football fans, and they're asking questions of like, what's a first down? I think most people know what a quarterback is, but like what is...
I didn't know what a tight end was.
Yeah, what's a tight end? What is an offensive line? What is offsides? All of these things are terms that if you are a football fan, you are a member of that discourse community. So you know those terms, you understand what they mean, and you can communicate. And there's something really cool about the way people can bond when you're in a discourse community. It can be an incredibly cool way to meet new people or other things because, for example, when we lived in North Carolina, we're Colts fans. We would go to a sports bar to go watch the Colts games because we were in grad school and didn't have any sort of like money, so we couldn't afford satellite or cable or whatever to actually watch the games. And there was always one other couple there that was in a Colts jerseys too, and we would always chat for a few seconds, but it was like, I don't know this person, but I know we're in one discourse community together, so we immediately had things to talk about. And vice versa, Swifties are the same way. When we say, the eras, when you talk about Bejeweled, all the things that we just said on this podcast, if you are not a Taylor Swift fan, you're often like, hey, what's happening right now? Like my dad's going to the Eras tour with me, which I'm incredibly excited about. And I'm literally going to put together a slide deck to explain certain things to him so that he can appreciate what's happening because he's not inherently a member of that discourse community. And I want him to get the full experience. And that's something that's so cool about Swifties is it's such a big community that like I made an AP Taylor Swift shirt for my husband and he wore it to gaming convention here in Indianapolis, Gen Con, another discourse community, and he had someone like run up to him from across and be like, wait, what's happening? What does the shirt mean? But it's just the way that the connections happen when you have the same language, you have so much you share that there's just this immediate kind of code, and we're all in discourse communities, but I think the Swifties are a really special one. It's tends to be female heavy. It's such a cool safe space. It's such a cool way for people to are so creative. So everyone is expressing themselves in such unique ways, and it's something that's so celebrated. It's just really cool. I love that you highlight other Swiftie small businesses. That's like you're in a discourse community that's like a sub discourse community of Swifties. Like we're getting granular, but it's really cool, and it's something that just wouldn't happen without Taylor. Which, not to say that she's perfect, but I think that's why we all love her and we love her music. It's not just something we listen to every now and then. It's like has actually created a community, which is really cool.
Laura, do you ever get those kind of reactions outside the internet also with people just running across the room when you share your stuff?
What do you mean share them? Like
when they see them, or people are like, oh my God, I love this. Where did you get this? And you're like, wait, I made those.
I don't actually have them on a lot of my like stuff.
I'm kind of like this too. I'm so shy about promoting.
I look at them all the time and they're like my job. So it's weird to have that on like something. Like I have other people's stickers on stuff because then it's like, oh, this is fun and new and interesting. Maybe that's weird to admit.
I ask because I so empathize with that.
You have to be your own best marketer. You are your own CMO. You've got to always be marketing.
That's true.
You mentioned books are another passion of yours. We also are huge book lovers. How would you say some of Taylor's lyrics compare to some of your favorite authors in terms of the storytelling and emotional impact? We like to bring up books all the time. We'll do episodes comparing Taylor songs to books like The Great Gatsby or Pride and Prejudice. But what do you see in terms of some of your favorite books and the comparisons between those authors or those books and some of Taylor's work?
Yeah, I've seen so much, and I didn't really grow up as a Swiftie. I only got into it probably 3 or 4 years ago. But I remember I had grown up reading classical literature, like a lot of books in school, in AP English, all of that stuff. So I remember I had read Jane Eyre, which is an awesome classic. And then I listened to folklore. for, I had just gotten it on CD. I hadn't really took the time to listen to the whole album before. And I realized that the song Invisible String is almost a direct quote from Jane Eyre, because in Jane Eyre, Jane and Mr. Rochester talk about there being an invisible string that's tying their souls together. And I just thought that was so cool because, and Taylor has also talked about one of her favorite books is Jane Eyre. So clearly that was inspired. And I just had so much more respect for her music at that point, because I was like, wow, she doesn't just write, as we all know, just pop music that doesn't mean a lot. It's so in depth and it's so artistic and poetic. And also later on in folklore, I think it's just the next song, there's the song Mad Woman, which also has a lot of comparisons to Jane Eyre. And not only those, but she's referenced The Great Gatsby a lot. She's referenced The Scarlet Letter, lots of classic works in her songs, which I think is really cool, because you wouldn't notice that unless you also read those books and you were picking out those references.
We have a bookshop where we mention the books that we talk about in our episodes, and I'm pretty sure Jane Eyre comes up every single time.
Jane Eyre's up a lot. Jane Eyre. I feel like The Red Room came up recently.
Yes, in our psychoanalysis episode, we talked about the Red Room and Jane Eyre. The womb, returning to the womb.
Oh,
yes,
yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we get real nerdy, and then we also get real just
silly.
Weird. Yeah. Silly's a nicer word than all the words that were in my head for that. So, because we're all big book fans here and we're all Taylor fans, one thing I thought would be really fun with this group, I could do it for hours, we'll go until someone decides we should stop doing it, is I have a spin the wheel thing that exists on the internet that I will click it and it will come up with a random Taylor Swift song. And then I thought it would be fun for us to all discuss what character do we think could fit with the song, or what story, what book, whatever it may be. We do this so much on the podcast anyways that I wanted to almost do sort of rapid fire and just see. And normally on the pod when we're doing this, we're prepared. And today we are not.
I was going to say, this is going to really tell us who actually is well-read, and it's all right, let's just do it.
No pressure, Jody.
No pressure.
Okay, I'm hitting spin. The first song is Dress from Reputation.
Are we trying to do classic literature or any literature?
Honestly, my vote would be just whatever your spirit thinks of.
I think I don't know why this popped in my head, but I decided to brave Anna Karenina a few years ago, and just the plot line with the affair that happens makes me think a lot of Dress, but it's a very long book.
The elements I was thinking of is that there's definitely a sense of seduction, definitely a sense of sensuality, and there's almost even a like friends to lovers potential trope happening here. I don't want you like a best friend, but you want something more.
Mine makes me feel like I am as read as an elementary school child, but for some reason I thought of Cinderella, which is technically classic literature.
Oh, I like it. The Brothers Grimm, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. But I was thinking of specifically in the Disney movie, that moment where her rags turn into this beautiful dress, and it was all just for the ball. I don't even think it was really for the prince, but I don't know. That's the first thing that popped in my head.
The first thing that popped into my head wasn't a book at all. It was a song from a musical, which is very on brand for me. My strongest suit for Maida. It's not the game, so I'm going to leave it there.
It's still a story.
Great.
This isn't a real game. We are literally making this up as we go.
I've disqualified myself from the game.
The game started with literally the hardest song possible.
It did. Yeah, can we do another one?
Let's spin again.
Okay, let's spin again.
Did we narrow down the options, or this is just going through the full discography?
This was a Google, and I opened it, and it's what's happening.
All right,
I
Google.
love that you have a wheel for this.
I did not make it. Someone else made it. So shout out to whoever made it. The next song is Lover.
Oh, so many.
I know.
Just immediately thought of Pride and Prejudice.
It's a great one.
Classic. And it also, because, I mean, this is our place, we make the rules, makes me think of Lizzie when she gets married to Darcy, like moving out of her house, which is very chaotic. It's not really hers. There's nothing about it that she feels all that at home, into his house where they make the rules because they're the lord and lady of the manor, or whatever rank that is. I don't remember. But they could leave their Christmas lights up till January if they wanted. They're the bosses.
I love that. Pride and Prejudice comes up a lot in a lot
Yeah.
of her songs.
We had a whole episode on Pride and Prejudice. My
We
first
did.
thought was also not literature, so this is just how the game's going. Hear me out on this one. This is going to seem really random. I, for some reason, started thinking of Princess Diaries 2 because
Oh, yes.
one thing I always liked about Lover is that the ladies and gentlemen, will you please stand doesn't end in marriage. It ends in being, my lover, which feels a much more intimate choice and for many people in the modern perceptions of marriage and all that. And something I always liked about Princess Diaries 2 is that her happy ending was she was the queen without the marriage, but she still did seem to be falling in love. And she was, though, like the whole agency that happens in Princess Diaries 2, that whole movie is about her establishing herself, making her own rules, like you just said, in Lover. But she also still does find the guy. She does get to fall in love. And so often, so many narratives make you choose between the two. And I think the song Lover refuses to make that choice. And I think that the movie does that as well.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That's so much more in depth than I was going to say Emily Henry Happy Place.
Oh, yeah.
Probably only because of that line, this is our place, we make the rules. I know that obviously in that book, like they're not together for a long time. Spoiler alert. But there was something about, the like poppy, effervescent love of Lover that I relate to like the love in an Emily Henry book.
Yeah.
Totally. I totally get that.
I actually had to pull up my Goodreads.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It's because I've forgotten the name of every book I've ever read, but I was thinking of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue because this is a book about a girl who runs away because she doesn't want to get married, and she stumbles into some witchcraft that makes her actually live forever. People forget her every single day, and so every day starts over. And so she would have people that she would really love, that she would spend a long time with, but every day would be like a new day. And she kind of gets into it and gets really comfortable with her house, and she kind of just gets to break all of the rules because she does her own thing. There's also a really creepy witch element. Anyways, it goes with the song, trust me.
I buy it. I totally buy it. Okay, the next one is Clean. And I'm doing the same thing, Monse. I can't remember. I'm out here I have 2 degrees in literature, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever read a book in my life. I'm so sorry. I just don't think I have.
It's just a lot of pressure.
Okay, so the themes of Clean are getting over someone, the catharsis of moving on. Come on, there's so many stories of moving on.
Maybe the newest Emily Henry, The Funny Story, because her fiance, I don't know if you guys have read it or don't want to spoil, but her fiance leaves her just totally stranded in this new city, and she doesn't know anybody, and she's just like heartbroken. And I mean, there's so much in that book about her obviously finding love somewhere else, but getting over that and feeling clean by her job at the library and really enjoying that with the kids and feeling like she belongs and making that life for herself instead of just being kind of along for the ride with him and his friends.
I love it.
I like that.
The other one I was thinking of has nothing to do with romance, but last year I read Duma Key by Stephen King, and the whole book starts, the second half goes into Stephen King world, so whatever. But in the first half of the book, the main character, the protagonist, went through a major head injury at his job, and he had a long time to recover, had a lot of memory issues, and ends up getting divorced and moves to Florida all by himself. And the first half of the book is him essentially recovering, and I would argue even when you get into the Stephen King element, so much of it is still him he's become a new person and figuring out who that is and what that means, and having left his old life behind, which is what I love about Clean. Is it's just so much that just moving on to your next phase of life, a new era, if you will, that I've never felt like Clean has to be moving on from a romantic situation.
Right.
Agreed, yeah.
Which we say all the time about Taylor.
I would like to revisit Lover really fast because I want to redo Romeo and Juliet for Lover.
Oh, yeah.
I feel
that's a
like
good one.
Can fit really well because it's these 2 really crazy, love-crazed teenagers who are just imagining their lives together, even though it never actually happens that way. They dream up kind of what that would be like in a very short amount of time. For Clean, I was thinking, I can't think of a book, but off the top of my head, but I was really thinking about like the theme of addiction as well as of just like trying to escape. And I feel like I've got to have read that so many times. but I can't think of anything off the top of my head right this second.
I'm glad you reminded me that Shakespeare exists, because that opened up a whole new room in the library in my head to rifle through.
Exists. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we've never talked about Shakespeare on the podcast. Ever.
Okay, next one is Girl at Home.
Oh my God, that's a problematic song.
Oh, yeah.
I love that song.
It's the song she won't sing it on the Eras tour. It's like the one.
Oh, I haven't noticed that.
Yeah, but the whole point of her song is her being like, dude, no, this isn't happening. Because the chorus is, don't look at me, you got a girl at home.
And everybody knows it.
Yeah, that a guy is hitting on her and she's like, bro, no.
I'm trying to think of a book that has that sort of
The
theme.
Other Boleyn Girl.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Ooh,
It's
look
a
at
great
you.
one.
Yeah.
That's so good. I
think
like
it's
Then the
It's
musical would be 6.
Jody's our musical girl.
Oh, we do. I'm telling you.
I feel like that was it. That's the book to go with that song. Okay. Betty.
Betty.
I don't read a lot of books with a male protagonist, is what I'm now realizing. Catcher in the Rye. The first thing, like, yeah, the thing that, I mean, not that the story is the same at all, but if I think about, like, from what is that quintessential teenage boy perspective in a book, I think of Holden Caulfield and Catcher in the Rye. And it kind of works because it's this Betty is this narrative of like, I'm sorry, what if I showed up at your party? I want to apologize for the things. And it has been a hot minute since I've read Catcher in the Rye, but if I recall from the cobwebs, clear off the cobwebs in my brain, he's just constantly thinking through his own thoughts and feelings as a teenage boy and what if I did this and why are things like that?
I can buy it. I can go with the essence.
If we ever do a Patreon, I want to have a special episode that we do where we just name books that we haven't read in a long time and we desperately try to piece together what the plot was, because I really enjoyed that personally.
Sorry.
I can't think of any specific book, but Betty as a whole always reminds me of pretty much every book by Sarah Dessen. I was super into Sarah Dessen books in high school. She does really high school rom-com-y style books. Really loved them. The Truth About Forever was my favorite book in high school. I literally it was in my senior photos along with my cat.
Wow.
So anyways, I've been cool for a really long time. Thank you.
Laura, did you have one?
The only one I'm thinking of right now, I think it was actually an ARC. It's the sequel to Better Than the Movies, which is a young adult book by Lynn Painter, I believe, where in the second book, it flip-flops between the girl's perspective and the guy's perspective. And it starts with them kind of not being together like they were in the first book. And Wes is the male protagonist, has done this terrible thing. And you don't really find out what it is until later, but he's desperately trying to win back Liz, his high school girlfriend, who he's still so in love with. But they've both grown a lot. And there's just so much, again, both of them being stupid because they were in high school and all these things that happen, but trying to like get back together and find what they had again. So I think there could be some parallels with Betty with that one.
I'm going to pull a Monzi and I want to go back to Clean because all this talk about high school, hear me out. I think Clean also reminds me of the end of A Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff and Chad Michael Murray.
Yes.
That was actually the first thing that came to my head.
The literal rain. It's
what is it? She's like waiting for you to come around is like waiting for the rain in this drought, useless and disappointing or something like that, which we were all like, that's the best burn I've ever heard in my entire life.
And don't they like kiss and it starts raining at the very end?
Yes, because he leaves the football game to go kiss her in the stands.
Yes.
I think it was a classic. It's not my dream, it's yours, Dad.
This is Chad Michael Murray, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
The rain thing just reminded me of what I was grappling also with that. I was thinking of Barbara Kingsolver's Poisonwood Bible. I think it was a book about
For Clean.
Yeah, for Clean. It's a Southern Baptist family that goes to the Congo for missions, and I remember there's something about a scene with rain, but basically it's more in terms of like a baptism. But I think there's a moment where complete disaster strikes and there's a torrential rainstorm and one of our main characters feels cleansed through that process.
Okay, next song is Invisible, which I'm still thinking Addie LaRue for that, but I know there are others. But The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue feels like a
Pause.
on the nose.
What is I don't think I've ever done this. What is Taylor Swift's song Invisible?
That's what I'm trying to remember. Isn't it from
It's debut,
Debut. I'm not a day. I have.
Oh, that's why.
and I can hear it in my head.
I'm embarrassed. I should have my podcast host hat revoked.
I can hear it in my head, but I cannot sing for the life of me, so I'm not going to sing it. But it's all about. It's very similar vibes to "You Belong with Me." Lines like, she can't see the way your eyes light up when you smile. She'll never notice how you stop and stare whenever she walks by. And you can't see me wanting you the way you want her, but you're everything to me. It's very debut, very high school. Like, I'm in love with you, but you're in love with someone else. And I feel like I'm just so invisible. You don't even see me.
Okay, I was just rewatching the OC, and it's Anna in the OC because Seth just wants summer.
Classic literature.
Classic.
Yeah, I'm also like, if we ever do a Bollywood blog post, I'm like, I could think of a Bollywood movie for every one of these songs.
That would be so fun. It actually makes me think a little bit of Pride and Prejudice, and probably another Jane Austen.
There's another book where there is a girl who is like observing. Oh, am I thinking of Atonement? Maybe where it's like the
maybe.
sister.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's because it's like the younger sister had a crush on the guy, and then she sees the older sister with him, and then it like starts off this chain of events.
Oh, it's also very Little Women Amy coded.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, maybe that also, yeah.
I was like, I can like see that the story happens all the time. I was thinking of Jane a little bit in Pride and Prejudice, but the kind of someone being sort of ignored or quiet, or in a time where people were so much more reserved perhaps in their declarations of love, where there's just this constant not knowing, and is he paying attention to her, or what does that mean? I feel like Invisible works for that setting and across a lot of stories. Probably
We did it. We redeemed ourselves, or you guys redeemed me, so thank you.
Okay, let's do one more, even though I personally could do this for hours, but whatever. Some of us have lives. I'm not one of them.
We'll do a repeat episode.
Okay, last one.
It's just Jen hitting the wheel and seeing what comes up. It's Jen's solo episode.
Yeah, if we ever do Patreon where we each do solo episodes, like we all
get to do whatever you want.
So unhinged after like the third episode we do alone. We make each other unhinged, but we also keep each other on track. So, anyways, final song, Blank Space.
Oh.
I think of Wuthering Heights, of the just unhinged lover vibe.
Oh, yeah. Could we also say Mr. Wickham from Pride and Prejudice? Because he's this like womanizer, and he's like, oh, you're interesting, Lydia Bennet. Like, I got a blank space and I'll write your name. But it's not serious, and it's kind of more, again, yeah, in Taylor Swift's version, it's a parody, but unfortunately, it was not a parody with Mr. Wickham.
No, it was not.
I like the gender swap.
I do. I love a gender swap. It's but based purely on the line "Magic, Madness, Heaven, Sin," the Night Circus.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Just there's something there with there's also something there with like how over the top she is in that song and the character.
Well, and even in the Night Circus, you could argue. This is not the most mainstream book, so listeners, I'm sorry, but...
No, but we've talked about it before, which is why I read it, because I was like, oh, I should pick this book up.
The premise of the Night Circus is that there's two very powerful magicians, and they each get essentially a protege who they train, who then compete with each other. And you could argue that for the magicians, that they're proteges, it's I've got a blank space, baby, and I'll write your name. They're very disposable to them. They're just using them for some other purpose, which is very much in line with blank space.
Can I go completely rogue and give a song based on Night Circus? Because, okay, I want to know if any of you guys have thought of this. I read Night Circus, and then I listened to Reputation, and the song So It Goes, it literally says, all eyes on you, my magician, which the guy is magician. And then the next stanza says, all eyes on me, you're illusionist. And the girl is an illusionist. And I could not
Fabulous.
You just gave me literal goosebumps. Goosebumps.
I was like, I don't know if there's any, I don't know when the publication dates were, if like Taylor might have read that book. It was just such a coincidence. I was like, she's writing a romance between a magician and illusionist, and there's all of these like magical kind of lyrics in that song. And I'm like, that's an interesting coincidence.
Now, this is that we could do a different game. Pull up your Goodreads or your book list, pick a book, and people have to come up with a Taylor Swift song.
We'll have to do a part 2 with Laura.
Yeah, I just wanted to know because nobody, not a lot of people have read that book. So
I love that.
I thought it was really good.
Whew.
Oh
That
my
was
goodness.
fun. Thanks, Jen. I feel like we're just getting warmed up now. I'm like,
I know.
okay.
Laura, in our first episode, we shared the songs that made us all Swifties. And so we are asking all of our guests the same question. What was the first Taylor Swift song that you heard and you were like, oh my God, I love this. I am a fan.
I would have to say it would probably be either Style or Wildest Dreams, just something off in 1989. I remember before I like really got into Taylor Swift, I had heard a lot of her music because it's everywhere and really liked it. And then one day I kind of just connected. I was like, wait, okay, so this song from Red called We Are Never Getting Back Together that I like is by the same artist that wrote this other song called Wildest Dreams, which I also really like. And I just started putting the pieces together and realizing like, wow, these are all Taylor Swift songs? I didn't know. And then I started putting them into a playlist on Spotify, and it just kept growing and growing, and I was finding more and more songs that I loved. So yeah, and then when I really got into it and listened to Folklore and Evermore too, like straight through, I just remember being so blown away by how poetic and in depth the lyrics were, and the production of the songs also was just so beautifully done. They weren't shallow at all. And I don't know, I had written off Folklore before I was a Swiftie thinking, oh, this is boring, like these aren't upbeat songs. But when you actually get like in a car and you're driving and there's trees and you're listening to them just in order on a CD, I don't know, there's something different that it just did to me where I was like, wow, this is just art. This is such beautiful artwork.
Yeah.
I have a friend who is a Taylor Swift fan, but he never listens to lyrics. Just like as a human being, he just doesn't really listen to lyrics. So I'll ask him like, oh, what's your favorite song? And he'll say this. And I'm like, oh yeah, like it's cool that it's about that. And he's like, oh, is that what it's about? And I'm like, I can't have these conversations with you. I can't do this. I love you, but no, this can't happen.
How do you not listen to lyrics?
He just goes on vibes. Pure vibes.
Yeah, all right.
Two kinds of people in the world.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun. Honestly, when you were saying the songs, you're like Style and Wildest Dreams. In my mind, immediately it was like, okay, what characters are these? Like, I need to think through this. So I think we just altered my brain chemistry a little bit, which is great. I'm totally on board with it. But we had so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you remind us again one more time before we wrap where everyone can find you and all of your cool stuff you're doing?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me too. I'm on Instagram, Little Owlet Art with a dot in between. And then on Etsy, it's just Little Owlet Art. And I am on TikTok. I'm trying to get that to get bigger. So there as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I had so much fun chatting about books and everything.
In case you're like me, that's owlet is like little owl. So OWLET.
Yes, it's a baby owl. That's how I it came up. It was this meme that I was obsessed with when I was in high school or middle school. And it was just these two baby owls sitting on a tree branch, and somebody had sprayed them with a hose of water, and they looked so mad, just totally like soggy. And the caption was moist owlets. And I just thought it was so funny.
You named a business after it. I love that so much.
Just the angriest little owls. Yep. And I was like, well, I really like that, so Little Owlet Art it is.
And that's how naming happens in marketing, ladies and gentlemen.
That's actually very true. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, and catch us next time. This was a bonus special episode with our guests, so catch us on Wednesday when we're back to our regularly scheduled programming where we deep dive and overanalyze more Taylor Swift songs.
That's all we have for you today on AP Taylor Swift. Be sure to rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on your social channel of choice at AP Taylor Swift to stay up to date. And join us next time as we overanalyze and deep dive into the next Taylor Swift song on AP Taylor Swift.